Hello.
Hello.
So over the last couple of years, we've done some pretty insane media projects in the Middle East. In fact, what, 5 years? We've now been traveling over here and doing some pretty cool stuff with drift cars. And until now, until drift games, we haven't really had anywhere
We've never had anywhere to put all the stuff we've gathered up because it's never been related to anything that we're doing. It's sort of things that we do in our own time.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of it's just crazy stuff that doesn't really sit anywhere. But we've been going through the hard drives, and we've decided, because we're back in the Middle East for the Emirates Drift Championship, to remind ourselves and have a little conversation about some of the mad stuff we've done over the past 5 years. So these are 5 untold stories from our Middle East adventures. Number 5, so we got to take it back 5 years when
it was the first few days that I ever came over to the Middle East.
And the first time Josh and I ever worked together was on a championship.
It was our first project.
Yep, first ever project we did together was 5 years ago, a series called Drift UAE. So this was my first year ever running drift competitions, and I was thrown completely out of my comfort zone. So we had this event, this crazy event in the Dubai Autodrome to kick off the season, and we wanted to do something a bit wow, a bit special.
I think it was just your idea just to drive a supercar, I'm going to be honest.
It may have just been.
It made no relevance to the video of what we were making.
Well, okay, I'll try and explain it. I'll try to explain why we needed a supercar, other than me just wanting a supercar. So essentially, obviously, we were in Dubai. It's totally known for flash supercars, craziest cars in the world are here. And I was sort of wanted to segue that because drifting is so new. In fact, at this event, I think it was one of the first time there'd ever been a top 16 or tandem drifting. So
first tandem drift event.
Yeah, first tandem drift event. So we were like, okay, let's try and segue from what people know about Dubai into this new form of motorsport. I think that was the concept.
I think that only got worked out halfway through when we were
got the supercar first, then we made up the story afterwards. But essentially, what we did was we went to some of our friends and said, look, can you get us a supercar? And they said, yeah, we can get you a supercar. So we got a Ferrari 458. And we decided to go film it going around Dubai, which would seem like it would be quite a simple thing, but obviously us being us, we got ourselves into some trouble along the way. First thing, when we got the car, we were talking to some of the guys who were local to here, and they said there was a motorway that was basically going into the desert.
They just gave up on the motorway pretty much.
It literally looks like it was 5 o'clock on a Friday evening. They were building this motorway and then they just stopped.
It's about 3 miles out to nothing.
So it's a huge motorway and then it just stops in the middle of the desert, turns to sand. So a lot of the guys were saying you can go there and you can rip the car and film it and you'll have no issues whatsoever. So, you know, we took that opportunity and we headed off. We had a Toyota Yaris camera tracking car, and I drove out in the Ferrari. We did some high-speed runs. It also was the first time that I tried to do donuts in a mid-engined rear-wheel drive car, which was not, you know, a little bit of a step up from my drift car. So some of them went pretty good.
You actually did launch control into the donuts.
I did launch control into the donuts just because you can. And then we did some donuts, and then I spun it out a few times.
Spun it out bad.
I spun it out pretty bad into the desert. Luckily, there was nothing to hit. So yeah, we messed that up a little bit. We got some cool footage. Then we said, oh, let's go to Dubai and film it going around Dubai. So obviously you get the nice backdrops and all the beautiful places there.
We didn't realize how illegal that technically is with the camera stuck on the front of the car going through the centre of Dubai and going through all the fancy parts and everything.
So like in Ireland or the UK, when we do filming, we kind of just chance sometimes just going on the road and putting a camera.
Which if you chance it in Ireland, you kind of...
You can talk your way.
You may get a little telling off by the police or guarders. But in Dubai, it's a bit more serious.
Yeah, so it's essentially illegal to use professional film equipment without a permit. We didn't know this, so we're gonna plead the fifth on this one and say we had no idea. So we got a little bit of a telling off, even though we got some great shots of the car going through the tunnels and going through in front of the Dubai Mall, all that kind of stuff. It was great. So we got eventually the car going to the Autodrome for the end of the film to tie it into the event.
So it's like the supercar. The aim of the film was the supercar driving to the event.
Yeah. So anyway, we wrapped up the filming. And just to throw back a little bit, we were at one point, we went to a petrol station to put some fuel in the car.
Which was a task in
itself because I didn't know how to do that. And of course, it was very obvious for everybody at the petrol station that we didn't own the car because we spent about a week and a half trying to find the petrol cap opener, which we did. And then halfway through filling up the petrol, a policeman came up to me and he was talking away to me and I was being casual about it. And he had a 599 Ferrari, I think, and they had like, and then he said, oh, do you think this is cool? the other policeman that was there had a McLaren, so there was like McLaren police cars, everything. So we thought nothing of this at the time until we finished up the shoot, and we went to give the Ferrari back, and the guy that loaned us to it said, "You've got 5 minutes to take this camera gear out of the car." And we were like, "Why?" He's like, "Because you guys should never have had that car in the first place." So we were a little bit nonchalant about.
We're flaunting it almost and boasting
we were
about
hidden in plain sight because we were openly talking to the police, and they just said, "Well, they must have everything in order." So it was a pretty fun first project. Turned out really well, and that event was crazy because the backdrop, everything was amazing. A wild first event and a first project for us. That video blew up. It did a lot of views. So that was some of the stuff you've just seen behind the scenes of making that video come together. And
it's never been shown. We've never had a place to show any of it. And you didn't want this. You spinning out in the Ferrari to be out.
Long enough has passed now that we can get away with putting it out there. But it was an amazing first shoot for me and Josh, and it led on to a lot more even crazier shoots. But that is one of the untold stories from the Middle East. That is the Ferrari supercar at the Dubai Autodrome video.
So number 4 of our Middle East adventures was the first event that we did in the Yas Marina circuit.
Yeah, so obviously this was our first couple of events working together. Second event we'd ever done in the Middle East, and we were a little bit out of our depth. So what better place to go than the most expensive race circuit ever built in the world? So this is a daunting one for us, and this was going to be a crazy event because we had drivers from all over the region coming to twin battle in one of the most famous sections of the course, and it was insane. There was just it's just one of those things where the atmosphere from the grandstand, the driving, it's so full throttle. It's a proper Formula 1 circuit with big screens and everything. It was amazing.
It was kind of strange, like looking down at the circuit thinking there's going to be a drift event here. Like, it's kind of like the most perfect built race circuit for drifting in that section because it's like, it's very tight and it's such high speed, low speed. It's like the perfect drift course.
And to us, it was a bit like having a drift event in your mum's good room. Like, we were sort of like,
we shouldn't be allowed
in here, but we were, and it was a crazy event. Amazing battles, cars were on point, driving was on point, and it was a real spectacle. So when we finished up the event, Josh obviously had all of your footage from it, and we said, well, we just did the cool intro with the supercar at the first round. What are we going to do for this one? And I came up with the idea that we were such a black sheep of motorsport, you know, even still are in many ways, but at the time, I was like, well, drifting's just been kind of led in to do a Formula 1 circuit. We should have it from that origin of where it comes from to how far it's come now. So if you're going to try and talk about the origins of drifting, it's the car that you want is an A86 Corolla. So we were like, if we can get an A86 Corolla into Yas Marina for the intro, it'd be awesome. Then
Which is
not easy.
In Ireland, that'd be an easy thing to do.
Yeah, you get 60. But over here, we talked to some of the guys on the grid, and they were like, yeah, I think there might be 3 A86 Corollas
in the whole UAE.
The whole, not UAE, the whole region. The whole region. So we were like, okay, so that's that idea out the window. But then the next sentence they said was, but we know a guy that has one, and he's actually driving in the championship. So we were like, okay, so one of our drivers, Samir Khadra, actually had an A86 Corolla, JDM spec in the UAE.
Original looking, really nice.
So we said, you know, can you bring it to Yas Marina and we'll just shoot it driving through the road system there? And he was like, yeah, no problem. So it all sort of came together pretty randomly, and then
I say short timing. I think we had like a day planning on this, and he was fine to drive up the next morning.
He just drove like an hour and a half there. And Yas Marina has its own road system around the circuit. It's a huge place. So we, again, didn't really ask for permission or anything to do with that.
Went in there as tourists.
And tracking cars and everything. And we filmed the 86 in Yas. And I think it's one of our favorite pieces because the car looks so beautiful there because it's somewhere it shouldn't be. It's all brand new and sparkly, and then you've got this old JDM car driving through.
And it's the whole story of where drifting came from, and then it's ended up now in an F1 circuit, which is kind of the most prestigious place for it to be.
It was crazy, and the video turned out really well. It got a huge amount of shares, likes, and views over the whole region here, and sort of put us on the map, I think, with some of the
I would say
stuff.
The first one could have been a fluke in a sense, and the second one, like, these people know what they're doing, even though we didn't really know what we were doing.
But it turned out, that's the magic of it, that it turned out great, and it was a fun shoot, and yeah, it brings back, that video always brings back memories for me of actually getting to run an event in Yas Marina. We ended up doing a lot more with Yas Marina after that, but that was the first one, and I think that video sums up beautifully. So that is a little bit of a teaser that a lot of people haven't seen before, but an amazing time. So number 3 on our Middle East adventures, well, this is a strange one because it's not actually an event we were running. So we came back over. We decided we were going to run a new championship called the Emirates Drift Championship, and obviously when you're starting a new championship, you need plenty of content and stuff to get the ball rolling, get the promotion up. So Josh and I flew in and we just kind of hung out for a little while, and you'll see some of the other stuff we got later in this episode. But the one amazing thing was we just sort of stumbled across a practice day.
Well, it's just they kind of casually said, "Oh, we're going to skid pad," which is just a big slab essentially. And
I like when Josh said slab.
There's just a few guys coming down if like you want to hang out or whatever.
This is a very fancy slab now. It is
it's
a
the nicest slab.
Skid pad. And they rent this place out for people drifting. And so the guys from Lunatics by Nature were there, and they said, "Come down, we're going to just rip some cars and stuff." And just to go back from that, a couple of months before that, myself and my girlfriend had come over and spent Christmas and New Year's here, where we hung out with the Lunatics by Nature guys. And I was sort of saying to them, what people do in Ireland is they sort of buy missile cars or cheaper cars.
Well, they were practicing in all the competition cars.
Yeah, so they were practicing
into each other and breaking them and everything.
Cars, like race fuel practice.
You're like, this is ridiculous.
You should get some missile cars, get some beat up BMWs or something to go and basically practice and get used to tandem battles. So when we came back, when Josh was there with me, they had just gone and bought a fleet of 350Zs and G35s, which they were using as missiles, and they just proceeded to just go ham, crashing into each other.
They didn't have any care for the cars whatsoever.
Every run they did was like a final. It was that much on the line, and there was hits and bangs and crashes. And it was also pretty cool because Chelsea Denofa and Matt Field from Formula Drift were there.
They were brought over to do some alignment and car stuff.
Some set suspension stuff for different guys, different drivers. Yeah, stuff that we don't understand. And they were there, we were hanging out with them, and they got to drive in some of the cars. And we were all just taking cars and jumping in. It was so much fun, and there was just carnage everywhere. But it goes to show these guys, they were taking drifting super seriously because they had now practiced cars. They were actually working on the technical side of it. And I think when we saw a lot of the guys from Lunatics by Nature come to Europe after that, they were obviously much improved.
Because all they do is practice literally twin battling, just door and door constantly.
So it was like they jumped, like the talent level had just jumped so significantly by the time they came back because of these nights in Yas where they were practicing in these missile cars.
And then there was Luke Fink there in the V10 BMW M3 as well.
Yes, and this is something really, really funny because we didn't have this Drift Games channel to put this stuff out.
We were just filming randomly because this is cool, obviously.
Yeah, so Luke was there, and Luke's a good friend of ours. Obviously, we've had him over in Ireland a couple of times, and he was hanging out, and he had this V10.
We only saw it previous to that, like a few days, because it sort of went viral all over the internet, and they were like, "Oh, it'd be cool to see that," and then just arrived on a truck halfway through the night.
So there is a really viral video of that car in that Yas skid pad, and it was like getting millions of views, and we were like, well, we actually have better footage of that night. We were actually there.
And onboards and everything.
We've onboards of the car and everything, which you guys can see now. And it was crazy because we obviously didn't have it, we know where to put the footage, so we just had it on these
you couldn't put it on IDC or anything
or anything else. So now you guys can see some of the footage we got from that night, and that car, he was just death wish ripping that car. It was incredible.
Like ridiculous what he was doing. Like it's a long skid pad, and he was going like literally right from one end to the other, clutch kicking it in, and it was lethal what he was doing.
It was. When you have a conversation at the side of a practice day and then everyone just stops talking because everyone's like something bad.
And then that was another thing as well you'd be able to see in the footage. There was, obviously went over we had to stop, the time had gone over where the night was. And then the police were trying to get him off, so they were chasing him in the police car with the lights on, and he just wasn't stopping for anyone.
No. So it was a bit wild. It was a crazy night, like from missiles to Luke Fink in the V10 to drift cars everywhere. And this was like just randomly turning the cameras on for us, just amazingly good fun, and shows sort of how wild and unpredictable things can be out here. So number two, well, we sort of showed you the footage from the skid pad. Well, the reason we were there was actually to do some high production stuff, some really cool promo stuff for the new championship, the Emirates Drift Championship. And we had sort of an idea of doing these set pieces. So we ended up doing a couple of set pieces, and they are just a little.
We didn't have much plan for these. We kind of had the guys in place to do something with the cars. We weren't sure if it was going to be just doing an interview talking about the cars, like down at this HQ. But we ended up
we ended up getting some pretty insane stuff. So essentially, our friend Kay, he has a compound, and that compound has a road system within it.
Well, we didn't actually really realize like how big it kind of went. So me and Lucas, one of the guys that was here working for Lunatics, we went off just on sort of a drive to see if there was any like cool roads that we could get like kind of just a run of the car or something. And what we found was essentially like a street circuit. A
street circuit. So the first bit was Ali Maksheed.
Yeah.
So Ali Maksheed, he's a really, really talented driver from the region. He has a 2JZ GT86 and he brought the car down. And again, it wasn't that planned. It was just go rip the car around this sort of closed off street area. And the footage that came out was awesome. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was nice to have the freedom just to like, it wasn't a circuit or anything like that. It was like kind of such a cool backdrop that it was just desert essentially, and you would never tell that it was on somebody's private land because it just looks like a desert road.
Absolutely.
That's the cool thing about it.
So then we sort of got a head of steam with that one, and we said, you know, Danny Neville at the time had the Mustang RTR, and we said let's just do a big massive burnout in one of them.
And the cool thing I like about that is because obviously coming into this place, like usually when you go to Ireland you go through a shed and it's just someone's shed at the back of the house.
Yeah.
But like coming down the road to this, there's like a big door, like slow opening with the Lunatic sign, and it was just too cool not to get.
Yeah, so Danny did like a big massive burnout. It was awesome. Of course, you don't have as much noise
in your car now,
which is now my car. But and I think that's maybe when I fell in love with the car, just watching the thing shred a burnout here. And then there was we had to get some more. So we said, what else are we going to do?
We took another drive, and
so Sultan Al Qasimi, he had just built a fully carbon fiber bodied 370Z. So we said, hey, why don't you just drift that in a go-kart track? And he was like, sure, no problem. And that's just how that happened. And then it was just ripped around a go-kart track.
And then we did one with Kay as well.
Yeah, so Khalifa, who was essentially, he had sort of, he has the headquarters at his place, and he has like a lot of land around it. And we were like, so one of the cool things he has is what's behind us right now.
Yeah.
So this is a 1,000 horsepower sandrail, and sandrail essentially is like a buggy with a V8 that goes up the dunes and through the desert. The thing is ridiculous.
It's an advanced buggy now.
A buggy is a very underselling word. It's
the tires are like big flaps.
They got big fan, rear tires, and the thing wheelies, and the engine's in the back, and it's like a Mad Max sort of setup, and it's pretty popular here, the sandrail stuff. So it sort of got to a point where we're saying, well, you've got the sand, and then let's take it from the sand to the street. So basically we had the sand rail take off on a wheelie, go up some dunes, do some jumps, and then it sort of slides towards the tarmac, and then he gets out of one V8 monster into another V8 monster, which is his Boss fronted S14 with an LSX, 700-800 horsepower, ridiculous car. So he gets out of one, jumps into the other, and just rips that car through.
Which was sketchy enough. There was trees either side, and he was going fairly fast. Actually,
it was actually, we thought it would be kind of a rolling burnout, but he was going really, really fast. And we were like, oh, let's not have a crash here while making this video. So in the one video, this guy has done a wheelie in a car, or a buggy, if you want to put it that way, or a sandrail. He's done a jump. He's done a skid, and then he's got into a road car. Well, I say a road car on the road. He got into definitely not a road car, a drift car, and then like shredded through this like windy lane through the trees, and it came out awesome. It looks amazing.
That was one of my favorite ones from those series of
So
videos. We
got that promo done. So yeah, between the sandrail, between the 370, between the Mustang doing the burnout, between Ali Maksheed doing a run through sort of a desert road, we had some awesome footage. What we needed to promote the championship, which came out really, really good. So
the thing that surprised me the most about it, we didn't come here with much of a plan, and then in Ireland you need all the permissions and everything. Yeah. And we sort of just winged it and got what we got.
I think if people are watching this, they realize we've winged pretty much all.
All the secrets are now out of people thinking, they must have got like government sign-offs and everything. And
that's the big thing you guys don't realize, is that we are not a professional big production company. It was just me and Josh.
Let's see what happens.
And see what happens and film it. And we have obviously sort of an idea or a script in our heads of what'll happen, but
we go away from the script a hell of a lot.
Yeah, that stuff, what that looks quite, high production value is actually just running around. I think I actually stood on the one where Khalifa is drifting through the road. I think I was stood in a bush with a recorder of audio. So I was basically recording the audio of the car from a little recorder in a bush as the car went by. So that's how sort of fly-by-wire it was. But it was fun. It was really good fun. And yeah, another kind of behind the scenes of what went on here over the last 5 years. So number one on our Untold Middle East adventures is something that happened sort of as a by the way. So Khalifa, who's one of our friends here, he's one of the main guys in Lunatics by Nature. His compound is sort of, and his garage,
the size of Ireland almost.
Yeah, it's a little bit different than what you guys might be used to in Europe. He has, and his family have, one of the biggest car, and most expensive probably, and rarest car collections in the world.
We heard about it.
We'd heard about it, we knew.
And nothing can prepare you for what it actually is.
No, so he has a place called Gallery, and in there is just the rarest of the rare cars around the world. If you're a supercar guy, and we're not, you know, super knowledgeable on every single type of supercar.
You can tell they're rare.
You can tell they're rare. So all those cars have 0 mileage on them. They're just
literally brand new, straight in there. They get serviced every year or something.
Yeah, they're still serviced every year, even though they don't move, because just to keep them fresh. Yeah. And they're all collector's cars. So just some of the rarest in one room. You've got, you know, anyone's dream collection there of cars.
Or 2 of them in some cases, like Ferrari F40s and Enzos.
Yeah. Just everything you can imagine, it's there. You guys, you have to see it to believe it. But there's also another garage. So this is like a rare garage where all those cars are stored and they're sort of like on display.
I would say it's kind of like the garage of the collection that he also drives, and when the cars aren't so rare or rarer cars come out, the cars in the gallery go into this other one. So it's.
But they're all used on the road essentially. So some of them are used on the road, some of them not. But it's sort of like a hidden gem of just a random selection. So when you go to the gallery,
it's 4 times the size as well. Like the amount is.
There's like ridiculous. 80, 90, 100 cars in there. Yeah. And so we went in there, and if you look at the gallery, everything's laid out sort of in a way that it's all, you know, by make or model or whatever. This is just more like a random selection of crazy stuff. I mean, there's a Formula 1 car in there, there's Jensen Button's own Formula 1 car, there's a Camel that's stuffed.
Was that the most expensive thing in that, the Camel?
I'm not sure. There was a camel, it was bitten by a snake, it was stuffed, it was a very famous racing camel. I'm not sure. I mean, again, how would we know?
We don't know. We know our camels as well as our cars.
Yeah, we do. We probably know less about camels than we do about cars, which is saying a lot. But the collection is amazing. It's just random stuff, everything from, you know, limos to smart cars to Formula 1 cars to Lambos to Ferraris, like everything you can imagine. It's just like a crazy collection of stuff. So we took a look around, and you just could spend hours in there just looking at some of the rarest stuff.
We're kind of doing a bit of an interview with him, and we're kind of like, it was like a general interview. Then we're like, we wanted him to talk about some of the cars, so we're like, is there anything in here that's like more special than what you would appear to be? Yeah,
what stands out essentially?
Yeah, and he was like, not really, no. And we're like, well, what about this car? It just happened to be stuck by that car over there.
So it's this, you can see Corvette Stingray behind us. That car right now, as we're sitting here, has 20 miles from new. And it had 15, I think, or maybe less when we saw it.
So it's obviously been driven around somewhere.
Yeah,
from one journey.
So we looked around. Then there was one standout for me, which is what they called the Ramus.
Yeah. So essentially, that's a one-off custom, wasn't it?
Yeah. So this is essentially his Khalifa's uncle builds custom cars, and it's not just about building, you know, performance cars, just something that's just crazy. So what I can only describe this was, it was a Dodge Ram, and they put a Ford Mustang convertible on top of the Ram, and then they called it the Ramus. So it's a Ram and a Mustang, the Ramus, and
extended it by
about, you know, 80 foot.
Put white wall tires.
White wall tires that I've never seen anything as big as in my life, and you have essentially something like nothing else on the planet. So that's one crazy thing that was there. Obviously you've got all the supercars, but one thing that stood out to me, and I think it was the most, it was the interview that we did, and the interview never came out, and we just never found a place for it.
No, we never had found a place for it, and it was one of, I would say, one of the kind of the most interesting or different interviews that we would have expected to come out.
So, you know, we interview drivers all the time, but Khalifa's a little bit different, obviously, you know, as he has such a huge car collection. But what stood out to us was that even though he had that huge car collection, and I mean everything you could want as a dream car, from F40s to whatever, he has a drift car, S14, which we showed you earlier in the footage, and we were sort of asking him what's his favorite car, what's he like to drive the most, and his honest answer was the drift car.
So all these cars are fun to drive, eye-catching, amazing on the track, but nothing compared to this S40.
And it goes to show, I think, you know, to wrap up this little segment, is that you can have all these crazy cars, and I've got some crazy cars, and lots of people have crazy cars, but there's something about drifting, there's something about being on the edge in a car that's just built to do one purpose, that no matter where you're from, or you know, your background or your passion for cars or motorsport, that just stands out. And especially for people like Khalifa, who've done so many different things, from the desert to the streets to track, to have that drift car there that is his favorite to drive. I think that was very much, you know, us as drift fans and running a championship saying, you know, there might be something in this sport if people love it so much and sort of connect with those cars.
And he's only been in it, I would say, a few years now.
Yeah.
And he says, like, his brother and that came down with a few drift cars. He went in it for 2 hours, and then he's been hooked on it ever since.
Yeah,
that's how easy it was.
And I think, as I said, it doesn't matter, you know, where you're from, anything about your background. I think one thing that drifters in general in the world can come together on is how crazy it is to get behind the wheel of one of these cars. So that was really, really cool to listen to and to check out. Yeah, and that's one of the very, very deep in the hard drive story, Josh, from our Middle East. From the Middle East adventures. So guys, we've just been sitting here rambling as we wait to pack the truck for round 1 of the Emirates Drift Championship, which is taking place in the Liwa Festival on the Saudi Arabian border, where a crazy amount of car heads and the most insane stuff in the world is going to turn up later today. So we're going to film it, and we're going to start filming a lot more regularly of our content from our
So instead of doing the throwbacks, we're going to be doing them live now on the channel.
And because of Drift Games, we can do whatever we want. We're just going to show you some crazy stuff from over here. So if you want to see some garage tours, if you want to see some builds, if you want to see some crazy events from over here, and you want us to keep filming it, because we're pretty busy over here, but we want to make sure you guys are interested and want to check it out, comment below, let us know what you think of the video, subscribe to the channel, like, comment, share, all the rest, and yeah, we'll keep the cameras rolling over here and show you what we get up to.